Endo here with Dan on StillerFanTV. Dan, let's talk in general about discipline, about focus, about locker room chemistry. Now that AB and Le'Veon Bell are gone, what do you see as far as discipline, chemistry is concerned?
Well, the big question for me is, what is Mike Tomlin going to do in harnessing some of the really raw emotion that came as a result of Antonio and Le'Veon holding out and not being with the team anymore? Unfortunately, I think that, and obviously we're not in the locker room every day. We're not talking to assistant coaches every day. However, I think that there were factions within that locker room. And I think that there is going to be at least a portion of that locker room that believes that now that those two are out of the equation, it's not going to be as dramatic. There's not going to be that circus-like atmosphere that everybody talked about. It'll be interesting to see if Mike Tomlin can sort of, as we say, reinvent himself to become more of a disciplinarian.
What about losing those two guys on the field? What about losing that talent? I saw last year when Le'Veon Bell was not in there, defenses did not have to defend the Steelers in the same way they did when Le'Veon Bell was in there. And now that AB's gone, I mean, I know we already went through the season last year without Bell, but again, it was really easy to see how defenses had an easier time defending the Steelers without Bell in there. Now AB's gone. So some people say addition by subtraction. What about the talent on the field and the numbers?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that one of the position groups that's been overlooked a great deal for all of the tight ends, not named Vance McDonald, I'm really concerned about. Xavier Grimble has shown flashes, but he's not somebody that we can put our faith in. I'm not necessarily sure why Jesse James got such a bad rap around here. I do think that we're going to miss his production. But I think it's interesting. If you look at statistically, a lot of people talk about yards per catch. How big is that? Antonio Brown was not even in the top 50 of yards per catch. Now, that's not to say that he's not an important part of what will be, I think, a pretty potent Oakland Raiders offense, but you're correct. There is going to be a big difference in how defenses are able to attack the Steelers without Le'Veon heading downfield, without his yards after the catch ability. And let's face it, Le'Veon Bell, his ability to pick and read holes was phenomenal. There aren't many backs like him really in the National Football League. So I think it's going to be, unfortunately, in the short term, we're going to see a lack of production. But again, the National Football League has a way of working itself out. And I think that the Steelers are going to find ways to utilize other talent. James Conner, for example. Juju, James Washington, Vance McDonald. There's still a lot of weapons on this team. And by the way, Big Ben Roethlisberger, he's still under center. That's the guy that can distribute the football. I think we're going to be okay offensively.
Okay, but you mentioned Big Ben. He didn't play tonight. He didn't play last week. There seems to be a pattern, 3, maybe 4 straight seasons where he's not playing until the 3rd preseason game. So what I don't understand is, how does Mike Tomlin and Fichtner and the rest of the offensive staff, how do they think that Ben is going to get on the same page with all the receiving core, but then especially with the fact that AB's gone, we've got some new guys coming in, he's not even playing the first 2 preseason games, and he's going to probably come out and play, 2 series, maybe the first half of the 3rd game, and then shut it down?
I do recall very specifically 2 seasons ago, Tom Brady hit upon this exactly. He and Bill Belichick talked about, in a post-game interview, I believe they played the Eagles in the preseason, said, well, Tom, you played the entire game tonight. Why did you do that? He said there's absolutely no substitute for live action repetition. So I just have a fundamental disagreement with the coaching staff about exposing somebody to injury. Coach Tomlin consistently says, and yes, now it's become ad nauseum, he says, we don't live in our fears. Well, not playing your starting quarterback because you believe that he's going to get injured and you're afraid that might happen, that is, in effect, living in your fears. So I don't believe that you can just flip a switch and all of a sudden you are ready to go, snap one for the NFL regular season. So I think he should play more. An entire game, not really, but he's got to get that game action to get better.
Absolutely. And as far as the D is concerned, there's some new guys. They signed Barron. Edmonds has another year under his belt. Sean Davis seems to be hurt quite a bit, at least in preseason. And again, getting those repetitions, getting that chemistry with the rest of his guys. They got the new corner coming in from KC. And of course, the number 1 pick, Devin Bush. What are your expectations about the defense? And I know it's really early. We're at halftime of the second preseason game, but what are your overall impressions of what the D can achieve this year?
I'm glad that you brought up Edmonds because I think that he is much the way Troy Polamalu was. He was a really disappointment. I think a lot of Steeler fans would agree with that his first year. I'm not putting Terrell Edmonds on the Troy Polamalu plane, but I happen to believe that first season that he had last year was going to be a terrific stepping stone because he's a guy that's very athletic. He tackles well. He has good range. So I expect big things from him this year. Devin Bush, he had 10 tackles, last week. He looks fantastic. Again, it's only one game, but overall, I want to see a lot more pressure on the quarterback. I don't want to see it with excessive blitzing. I want there to be good pressure up the middle.
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm not concerned about the sack numbers. I want them to get in the quarterback's face, bat balls, make him hurry his throws, that kind of stuff.
If you get quarterback pressures and you force somebody to physically get hit off the line, there is so much timing involved in the National Football League where it's got to be 1, 2, 3 steps and fire the football. If you're physically disrupting a receiver's route, that's what you can do. I hope to see more of that from Coach Butler's defense. I want to see more turnovers. Sack numbers don't necessarily concern me. Now, if the sack numbers lead to improved turnover ratio and improved field position, absolutely, I'm all for it. So I expect an uptick in the defense, but let's face it, we're going to need a big contribution from Devin Bush. How fair is that to put a lot of pressure on a rookie, even with a guy with his talent from the first round?
No choice.
Yeah, it's a terrific choice, but that's the question is how much can we realistically expect him to deliver in this first season?